What are people doing wrong when they're posting on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I can talk about that for a while. The major issues, almost no one is reading your post start to finish. People that don't know you, that have just come across it, are definitely not reading every word. Well, you can't skim dense paragraphs. You can't. I know it's counter to the way we were all taught to write in school. That is not how content is written. Second one is hashtags are pointless. It's just an overuse of bold and emojis. Use 15 emojis and 14 of them are different. You're drawing them nowhere because you can't focus. Simplicity in the content wins. A little bit of bold, few emojis, space it out so that in 5 seconds, someone who has no idea who you are, they have no idea why you're writing content, they can spend 5 seconds with your post. And if they don't look at anything else, they'll get something from it.
Meet David Young. David is not your typical LinkedIn guru. David's a consultant for many high-profile coaches, consultants, and solopreneurs who are using LinkedIn to try and grow their client base on the platform. And you might be thinking already, like, wow, there's 101 LinkedIn coaches out there. But here's what sets David apart. He has got an incredible attention to detail. He dives into analytics and he's able to pick up the small things that are able to help you have success. What really blew me away about David in particular was his incredible analysis of every single piece of content that is out there. And he's managed to achieve some insane results for his coaches who are using the platform to grow. He's helped some of his coaches increase their profile visibility by 649%, increase their engagement rate by as much as 37% in the first 2 weeks, and even land their biggest clients on the platform after their very first event. Talking to David, you're going to understand that he has his finger on the pulse of exactly the right combination of content and warm outreach that it takes to have real success. And make sure you stick around till the end of the video to see David's personal morning routine, how he dives into the analytics, and how you can do it too without getting overwhelmed. Without further ado, you're listening to Marketing by Design, powered by AMA Columbus. I'm your host, Andy of MMG Design. This is David Young. I'm so excited to learn with you. Let's dive on in. Keeping up with marketing trends and leveling up your career doesn't have to be overwhelming. So don't go at it alone. Welcome to the Marketing by Design podcast powered by AMA Columbus. Join host Andy Milligan every Tuesday as you and I dive into the info that you need to know as a marketer. Whether your goal is to land a job, grow that network, make more money, or level up your career in marketing, you are in the right place. Come for the actionable info, stay for the pressing conversations with industry marketing leaders, and walk away the best equipped marketer ready to dominate your niche. I'm so excited to talk to you today. Let's go. If you had to pick like the perfect LinkedIn morning routine, what would that look like for you?
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think it does depend on, A, how much time you have, B, what are your goals for the platform? So there's going to be some variability. The way I set it up, when I log in, I don't do it like first thing, but it definitely is earlier on my morning schedule than most other things. So I come in, I usually start with notifications, clear those out, see if there's anything in the notifications I want to respond to. Then I'll go to my profile. I'll look to see any new profile views, followers. I'll respond to any comments on my post that I haven't responded to because I try to respond to all comments. So I'll clean those up. And then I start to go through more of like what we talked about with the custom feed. So I start going through that and start commenting as I see fit. And then I take a little bit of a break because I have to get the dog and other house stuff done. Then when I come back, usually at like 7:45 to 8, then I'll start commenting more consistently, going through the feed and the custom folders. Then about 8:20, I stop commenting. I go to my profile, and then I have my post ready, but I read through it, one or two more times, make sure I didn't miss anything, make sure the graphic's good. Then I post live at 8:30. Then I jump back in and comment for another probably 5 to 10 minutes while I wait for my post to hit the feed. And then as comments start coming in on mine, I'll respond to those first handful of comments right away. And then it's just a mix for another probably 45 minutes of just commenting on my post from commenters and then commenting on other posts. So usually that runs me to about 9:30. So usually 7:45 to 9:30. So that kind of hour 45 is pretty consistent of that back and forth mix.
So real quick, I just want to tell you guys about my design and marketing agency, MMG Design. We help marketers and B2B companies make more money from their websites. We are firm believers in the power of ROI-driven marketing and design. If you feel like your website or content strategy is not delivering on that, we've helped achieve this result and solve this pain point for our clients in the Columbus, Ohio region and nationwide. And beyond that, we actually tailor a content strategy for them, tailored to their niche and industry to help get traffic to the site, whether that be content strategy, social media, creating funnels, all of the above. If you feel like your website isn't actually a marketing asset, definitely get in touch with us. Our link will be below. Thank you for listening. Back to David. That is, I think that's what I expected. I mean, as we talked about last time, but I think if you're going to get a genuine ROI from a platform and like, you get out of it what you put into it, and how many, like, what's your concentration of clients that come to you from LinkedIn, if you had to kind of extrapolate that out? Because like when like marketers and people that are looking to really spend their resources the most time in the most effective way, you have the time investment, and then you have maybe the monetary investment of having someone who really knows your list and your target customer to go in and implement these things too. So what ROI have you seen on it for you and also for your clients as well that you work with?
Yeah, so all of my clients have come from LinkedIn. You know, I've been on the platform consistently now for about 18 months. I've had the business live for about a little over 9 months. And it's been a mix of people that I've just cultivated relationships with. So I've gotten to know them through content, through one-on-one Zoom calls, and then we decide to work together. It's been another mix is people who I've never heard from, or I've never seen them. They never commented or liked any of my posts, but they'll book a discovery call with me because they've been watching my content. And there's been a few referrals from people I've worked with and be like, hey, I think you could help this person. And I've reached out, and that's kind of how that's worked. So it's been a mix of those three. Again, it depends on what you're doing, right? What are you selling? What product or service? How defined is your niche? Like, do you know exactly who you're targeting? That helps if you do. And then that way you can spend time. Because ultimately, especially when you're newer, the more outbound messaging you can do, not cold messaging, but warm messaging, new followers, connections, people that are commenting on your stuff. Those people you can reach out to because they've kind of signaled that they're somewhat interested in what you're doing, and it's starting to send those messages. And again, you're not selling, but you're just trying to start building that relationship, and you're trying to get a feel for like, what are they doing on the platform? Where are they headed? What struggles do they have? And then like, are you a candidate to help them? And if you are, great. If not, that's great too. And then you could refer them to someone else. So I think it's a mix. And I haven't done a good enough job of that in my business. I've probably focused too much on just content alone, which is hard to build a consistent business on content by itself. But the good content mixed with a specific targeted outbound messaging campaign is a pretty powerful combo. So that's a big focus for me going in in 25.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think a powerful reframe is, like, this hit me really hard personally, was you spend so much time making content, but then you have to get it in front of people, right? That's why I like LinkedIn, is because I think you can actually have a little bit of a say in terms of not just who sees your content, but how effectively it's pushed out. Like, you invest your time beforehand, you kind of have to earn your right to get in front of people and populate the feed. But I think a really good reframe that you mentioned there that I didn't want to skip over was this concept of using what you already have to work with, in a sense. So I think when a lot of people think, like, I need leads, I need to get on LinkedIn and make this productive, their first instinct is to go to outbound, like to send as many messages as possible, really spread the umbrella. And whether or not, I don't think it matters how defined your niche is. I think it has an effectiveness on it, but there is an element of what do you already have to work with in terms of people that have already shown interest, engaged. And that's why, like, the part you mentioned of, like, visiting the people, looking at the people that have visited your profile and reaching out to them is not something that I have done, nor, like, looking at, even, like, because your content can get reposted too. People that have engaged on the repost of your content, I'm thinking now too, because they've seen your face, they've seen what you've echoed with. So I think there's a lot of, like, niche strategies like that people aren't really doing, and I think that's where you can learn to use the platform smarter rather than just, okay, I'm gonna grit it up, suck my gut in and just type messages all day. Because there are people that approach it like that, A, genuinely don't enjoy their time on there, and B, they burn out very fast.
Yeah, it's, you see a lot of posts, people telling you, send 20 DMs a day, 25 connection requests a day, 50 DMs a day, you'll see some pretty big numbers. I don't overly subscribe to that very strict numbered approach. I've tried it. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
It works much more in the flow of what we're talking about, which is warmer, what I would consider warmer connections, or not even necessarily leads. Just people that are just interested in you and your content. They might be a lead, but they might just be a connection, right? I mean, most people aren't going to buy from you. I mean, it's like 1 or 2%. It's a very small number of people that actually buy your product or service, right? So, I mean, most won't. So you can't really approach it that way. The relationship part and the networking part's really where you should focus. If it leads to a potential client, that's great. And obviously you'll know that from their profile, or like if you look at their profile and they're perfectly aligned to what you do, then obviously you know they're a more of a candidate to work with you than somebody that isn't. But I mean, any social platform, but especially LinkedIn, it's really about the relationships and the connections and the network that you're building, which is where content plays a part, because that's, like you said, that's how your people are actually seeing you. But it's in the messaging, asking questions, seeing what people are working on, where are they struggling? And you might be able to just offer just like a couple quick tips to be like, hey, I struggle with that too. You can try this. And again, it's not necessarily leads to business. It's just good form helping other people. And I think if you do that consistently, then you're setting yourself up for long-term success. To me, the send 50 messages a day, it probably works. I mean, it's a numbers game. Like if you just send enough messages, eventually, yes, you'll find some yeses in there. But then I feel like you're just kind of burning your network, and it's like you said, it's very exhausting. And can you really keep that up? I don't think it's sustainable long term.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And that's why I see, and you see it all the time, especially. And I think with marketers, it's a very different conversation, because I think we're all like very hyper aware to like, oh, I'm being outreached right now. And that's why the most effective outreach you can do is actually overcoming that and showing that that's not what you're doing. You're building relationships and you're just genuinely interested. And to me, you almost take the disadvantage and make it an advantage, because you're taking, oh, like this person is just sending me a message to, partner up or sell me something. And then it creates a really strong impression when you overcome that and you say, like, no, that's not actually why I'm here. When you just ask them a question about their profile, their experience, their last post, I think, too. When you make new connections, and have you ever experimented with going off platform on LinkedIn? Because that's something that I see a lot with teams, is that they don't see a lot of internal. There's a lot of people that are, I think it's like 3 to 4% of the actual user base engages frequently on LinkedIn. So a lot of people are on there, but they're not present. So have you done any experimentation, or do you ever recommend to clients to find an avenue off platform, or do you just look for communication to happen internally? Do you see that most effective?
I mean, when I first started, I did a lot of, one-to-one Zoom calls with not potential clients, just with people on LinkedIn that I thought were interesting and smart, and I liked their approach, their profile, their content. So, I was just trying to build a relationship. I didn't even have an offer. I couldn't have sold them anything if they wanted to buy it. Like, it didn't even exist. But I found that to be a really good way, just to get to know people, and then people start to get to know you. So it really built kind of some loyalty in people that were supporting me in my journey, because I was new. So I think, especially if you're starting out, I think getting in front of people, even if it's for 15 minutes, I was doing mostly 30-minute calls, but, people are busy. Even a 15-minute just quick chat, just to see your face, feel your energy, get a little bit of your background, I think that goes a long way. And it really is very congruent with the content, because now they've seen your content, now they get to meet you. So you feel like you're starting to get to know them a little bit. So if you have time to do that, and the people on the other side do, I would definitely encourage it. Again, I don't set a quota. It's like you have to have 5 coffee chats or 20 coffee chats a month, or I don't put a quota on it. I think that happens better if it happens more naturally, with just people you want to meet and who want to meet you. But yeah, so I think if you can do that, again, it goes right back into the networking and relationship building. It's just another way to continue to deepen the relationship.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, even our first chat, you kind of have the validation that people are real, and that when you are like logging in every morning, it's easy to get into the mindset of like, you don't even see them as real people. And like, everyone else, there's always someone on the other side of the screen that's benefiting from your words and benefiting from your comments, support. And I think it takes the real communication and the off-platform stuff to really make it known. I do a lot of in-person networking because I am local, and the amount of and I'm not saying like this is, and anyone that posts content consistently, especially if you have a defined niche and especially in your area and it's local, and that's where a lot of your outreach and outbound takes place. The amount of people that have said like, I've seen your video on LinkedIn, I've seen you, I've just seen your profile picture, you look familiar. I think that's an advantage that comes with the content side of things and not so much the engagement side of things. So if you're really consistent with posting content, you'll have that recognizability. But then again, that doesn't get you anything in terms of getting a foot in the door. But I kind of wanted to zoom out a little bit and ask you, if you haven't noticed, like, have you ever listened to the Tim Ferriss podcast?
I haven't listened to, I know Tim Ferriss. I read the 4 Hour Work Week a long time ago. And so I'm familiar with his work. I haven't listened to his podcast. I know it's pretty popular. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So he does this thing. It's called like, and he's like the master interviewer, all right? So he does this thing, it's called zooming in, zooming out. So you get like, you want to leave the audience with something that's like super granular and tactical, and they can like walk away and like, oh shit, I can implement this right away. And you also want to give them like high level, like philosophical thoughts. And if you can nail that both in one interview, then you've crushed it. So I want to know like about like the bigger picture, David. So how did you kind of get started? I know you weren't always freelancing, building your own business. You had a lot of time in a corporate structure. And what motivated you to kind of to make that transition to lead you to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I worked in corporate for over 20 years. I did I did sales, customer service, a lot of finance. And at the end, I did some data analytics work, 6 companies, 4 industries. And I just always felt like an outsider as a corporate employee, a 9-to-5 employee. I just didn't feel like I fit in. I never liked having a manager. I didn't like manager one-on-ones. I hated company all-hands meetings. I just kind of always felt like they were pretty pointless, and I just didn't understand what I was doing other than I had to do it because I needed money or the benefits or both. And so I kind of felt forced. And so I hired several career coaches. I was seeing therapists, trying to figure out like, what am I supposed to be doing? Sitting in a cubicle and punching, numbers in a spreadsheet all day. Just this seems kind of like there has to be more to my work life than this. And I read 60 or 70, personal growth and self-help books. I was listening to podcasts. I was trying all these things, but they were helping a little bit, but they weren't nothing was really changing. And so about a year and a half ago, I just had this idea that I was going to start creating content on LinkedIn. I did not have a plan to do it full time. It was something so outside the box for me. I had no social media profile, no Facebook, Instagram, none of it. LinkedIn was the only real social profile I had. I had about 450 connections, which were mostly just people I either knew or worked with. It wasn't intentional. But I thought, okay, well, at least I'm not starting from scratch. I'll start creating content. I feel like I had a lot of experience, work experience. I played sports all my life. I've done a lot of racing, marathons and triathlons, things like that. So I had kind of that to pull from. So I thought I'm just going to start telling stories on LinkedIn. And it took me about 3 or 4 months. And then I realized I was pretty good at it and I really liked it. And that's when I started thinking like, hey, can I just do this all the time? Like, I'll just skip the 9-to-5 part and just move to this. So in February of 24, I quit my full-time job. And in April of 24, I launched, a full-time coaching consulting business. And, that's how I spend all my time now. So I'm in the right spot now. Now it's trying to figure out the best use of time. And like we talked about, selling and client acquisition and really helping people grow and launch their businesses, taking what I've learned, and helping them, apply it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And would you say like, are you a lot more excited to get up in the mornings like now than you were, maybe when you were working corporate? I think a lot of it is because I just heard your morning routine and stuff like that doesn't sound totally glamorous, but you have to understand like the context of where you're coming from and like the mindset behind it. So like I used to work in a creative agency where you're really doing a lot of the same stuff. Like you're in front of a computer all day. But at the end of the day, you kind of realize like, what would this look like if like all the efforts of what I were doing were benefiting me and not somebody else? And I think that in and of itself, having come from something where you had so little control to just having autonomy, that can last you forever. And that's the approach that, a lot of freelance marketers take. That's the approach that I've taken. Have you seen that to kind of be similar and make you appreciate what you do a lot more now?
Yeah, 100%. You see it all the time on LinkedIn, the Sunday scaries, and you start dreading Sundays and Sunday evenings because, the next stop is Monday morning. And that was me for sure. It was worse when I had to go to the cubicle. It wasn't quite as bad when I was working from home, which I did for the last few years, but still it's the same idea of like, I have to be there for a certain time. I have to be available on Messenger, Teams. And you lose the ability to choose. And so now the Sunday part has completely gone away. Like this doesn't feel like work to me. I mean, it's actually a lot of work. It's more work than I ever did. It's much easier to be an employee. Like, even if you don't like your job, it's just easier. I do way more work now, but I really like it, so it doesn't feel like work. So I enjoy working. I'll work in the evenings. I work on the weekends because I want to, not because I have to. It's just there's a different energy. What I'm doing now feels energizing. Everything I did before felt draining, and it's completely shifted. So yeah, it's when you find something that you're good at that you like doing, that's kind of the ultimate, I think, goal for like your work.
Yeah, and I think like it's not something that you always find early or even ever. Like I'm not 100% sure on what this lifestyle for me looks like. And I know I'm very self-aware that I'm, younger, and I think you don't have to put pressure on yourself to say like, okay, this has to be my reality. There's so much. It took me forever to realize, but there's just so much opportunity outside of like the traditional like 9 to 5 and corporate roles that, especially because people in my phase of life, like you just graduate, you're looking to get it, like you have all these people, you have the peer pressure of like everyone else is getting jobs. It's like I have to say I'm doing something, and if there's so much power in just like not caring what other people think. And I know like I still care what other people think. Like I'm not. It's like I am not like I have so much to learn on this front too. But if you can free yourself from just feeling like you have to take a traditional path and betting on yourself a little bit, I think there's a lot of power in that. I think that applies a lot to whether you're doing freelance or because a corporate lifestyle does work for a lot of people and they are very successful in that. I think it's a little bit about being self-aware and knowing where you thrive. And clearly for you, you could tell where you've been in something, you've been trying all these things, you've been pulling on all these levers, doing everything in your power to figure out whether if this was for you, if like the emotions you were feeling were being validated of not being in the right place. And then before you make that leap, and then now you're in a place where you enjoy it a lot more. So that's awesome to see. I love that.
Yeah, and it took I'm significantly older than you and been through a lot, and so yeah, it took me forever. Hopefully other people find it a little sooner. But it is about experimenting, and really it's about taking action. So it isn't necessarily about quitting your job. It can be, but it probably won't be. But it's just if you're something that you're interested in, like if in your head you're thinking, I want to do this, whatever it is, you just have to do it. You have to try it in some way because you'll never know if you like it, if you're good at it, if you want to do it, unless you try. You can think about it all you want. You'll never know. So like if you want to write a book or if you want to travel or start a yoga studio or whatever, like you have to try. And then in the trying, that's where all the learning happens, right? I mean, reading books is great and listening to podcasts is great. And you can definitely get things from them and that can move you forward. It can give you ideas, motivation, inspiration, but the actual taking action and the doing, whatever it is, that's where the real, magic, for lack of a better term, happens because that's when all the learning happens. So for me, it just took me a long time to take action. I thought about taking action for many years, but just talk myself out of it and or wait for the perfect time, or I'm not quite ready, or once I read this book, I'll be there, or I save this much money, then I can do it, right? You can always find other markers and keep moving the goalpost to keep putting it off. That's super easy to do. The actual like jumping in and being like, all right, fine. Like today I'm going to do it, or next week I'm going to do it. And then doing it, like that's where the power is.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'd love to hear that. But getting a little bit more tactical now. So for me, like the LinkedIn analytics dashboard is just a mess. And I know for a lot of people that are making targeted content, they need to take action. Like, how do I leverage my past content to create better assets in the future? And it's a process that's really messy. It's like, okay, like I have this whole library of stuff that I've already made. What are the 2 to 3 most important analytics that people should be listening to on LinkedIn? And if you had to narrow it down that initially and say like, okay, these are the things that you can take action on, based on either your past content or your existing posts and you're seeing responses from. If you had to pick like 2 or 3 analytics that you look at the most and that you see recommend your clients look at the most, what would those be?
Yeah, I think that gets back to depending on where you are in the journey. So some people are just starting out, and so they're just creating to build. They want to build a following and a network, more connections and followers. They don't have anything to sell. They're still typically working full time. So in their case, they're going to want to look just a lot more at just impressions and reactions and comments. And then are you seeing an additional inflow of like followers and connection? Are people reaching out to you? That would be kind of a very basic metric because that's all that you're really working on. If you get to the point where you evolve past that, where you are selling a product or service, or if you're just starting out where you're like, I have a product and service, so I want to start creating to sell it. You still want to track that because you do want to know how posts are performing, but you need to take a couple extra steps. One of the things that I think is really important. So if you notice in LinkedIn posts and people will say at the bottom, like, DM me this word, whatever, like action or 2025, doesn't matter. But you want to change that every time. And the reason that you're giving them that specific word is because you want to track when people are actually taking action so that you know where they came from. If you use the same word every time, like if you said DM me 2025 and that was the bottom of all your posts for next year, you would have no way to know where they came from. You could ask them what post they came from. They probably couldn't even tell you, right? Because usually it's a culmination of your posts. But if you use a different word, you can now trace that back. So then if you start to see trends in posts that you're writing where you're getting, people to respond, then you make sure you have to bold, highlight, save those, whatever it is, because those are the ones you want to reuse probably probably at least every 60 days, if not even sooner, because there was something in that message that resonated, and you can tweak it a little bit, but for the most part, you'll want to use that post. So that's one way to do it. And then when, as we talked about outbound, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but, you kind of want to track high level, like how many messages you're sending, and then how many of those are moving to like sales calls, and then how many of those sales calls are turning into clients. And again, it doesn't have to be super specific, but you want some idea on your return of how many messages do I need to send, and then how many of those will turn into calls, and how many of the calls will turn into sales, right? So you want some rough number, and that way if you do that for even 3 months, 6 months for sure, now you start to know how much time you need to spend because you're going to know what you're getting back on it. So again, it's a little bit variable depending on where you are in the journey, but those two or three things are pretty important to keep in mind.
I like the caveating because I think every answer in some extent it depends. So there are phases of life where that's why it takes consulting. It takes a personal approach to what your habits should look like on LinkedIn. So there's no one size fits all. But if you're in a phase where you need to build a network in order to leverage your future actions more effectively, it makes sense that a lot of your time in the beginning might be spent doing outbound, making connections, engaging with others, rather than tracking the effectiveness of a library that you've already built. Because, by definition of being new, you don't have that to draw from. I think, like I said, the instinct a lot of times is the biggest friction of anything is with change, right? So people have their morning routine and they get on and they kind of, and this is me, literally, this is me. You kind of have your habits, and I think taking maybe on a weekend or something like that where you can assess like where am I actually at and how can I consciously be very specific in terms of how I'm spending my time on here to get the most out of it, because like I said, it is time spent is an investment, and anything in marketing is an investment, so you want to make those resources kind of go as far as you can. And I think it's a really good approach to not have that one size fits all. But if you had to give, and this could be funny depending on how you approach it, but if you had to give like the most common mistakes that you see on posts where, maybe you just cringe, like what are people doing wrong when they're posting on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I can talk about that for a while, but we'll try to keep it short. So the major issues, the biggest issue, so here's what to keep in mind with LinkedIn content. Most people are seeing it on their mobile phones. So you have to have white space in the post so that it's easily scannable. Almost no one is reading your post start to finish, ever. Even the people that like and support your content probably aren't reading every word. People that don't know you, that have just come across it, are definitely not reading every word. They don't have no idea who you are. They don't know why you're posting. They're going to skim it, and then they're going to see if it's interesting to them. They'll spend some more time with it. Well, you can't skim dense paragraphs or no spacing. You can't. I mean, your eyes have nowhere to go other than just this mass of words. So you have to hit enter, and you have to hit enter frequently. I know it's counter to the way we were all taught to write in school, like term papers and Word documents. Like you're taught, indent, big paragraph, double space, big paragraph, right? And you can write pages and pages and pages. That is not how content is written. So if you're writing content that way, please stop. Lots of enter. The second one is hashtags are pointless. So you don't need any hashtags at the end of your post. That does nothing. Doesn't increase reach. No one is searching for them. It's a complete waste of time. So you can just stop doing that today. And the third one I would say is just an overuse of bold and emojis. So keeping with the scanning theme, the reason you want to use bold and emojis is to draw people's eye, because they're going to scan, and as they scan, they will be drawn to what you're drawing them to with bold or emojis. So you want to use those in limited variety so that when they scan, they're seeing like a handful of 3 to 5 major points, right? But if you bold half the post, or if you use 15 emojis and 14 of them are different, you're drawing them nowhere, because you can't focus. Like, you're just seeing this like 14 or 15 emojis. How do you know which one's important? Or if half the post is bolded, how do you know what bold parts are important, right? So they're overdoing it. So just simplicity in the content wins. A little bit of bold, few emojis, space it out so that in 5 seconds, someone who has no idea who you are, they have no idea why you're writing content, they can spend 5 seconds with your post. And if they don't look at anything else, they'll get something from it. If they like it, they'll stay. So it's a little bit counter to the way we were taught, which I think is why a lot of people struggle. Because I would say a majority of posts struggle to hit like simplicity, easy to read, get their point out very quickly. It takes practice, because it's just, again, it's counter. But yeah, those are kind of the main. Spacing, too many bold, and the hashtags, probably the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's with that human, a typical human syndrome where it's like you're tripping over dollar signs to pick up pennies, where it's like, I need this, I need to hire a video editor, I need to make this super curated content. And then you go to write the post and it's like, okay, like, I don't want to read this. Like, I don't care who you are. Nice. You have like a very, a lot of flashing colors, a lot of great edits in your video. What have you seen to be, because I think no matter where the trend goes in terms of, because I know video is a lot more popular now on LinkedIn, and I posted 77 straight days of video, so I feel like I can speak on this for once. The writing is the most effective. Like, that's when you're doing video on LinkedIn, it's still a text-first platform. So really, when you can spend as much time making the video as you want, but you really just have to check the boxes of, like audio, captions, communicating clearly, getting the idea across. Having a good hook is a big one. Because I think if you have a really good hook and you pair that with a good opening line in your text, it's like gasoline on the fire. But it all comes back to the writing, because that's what you're going to see first, even if it's a great video. So if you can find a way to make that first line, that hook, tie back into the video, into the existing content, whether it's an image or a video or it's text only, it'd have to be really powerful. But I think unless it's the human syndrome where you want to optimize before you calibrate, so just having your basics in place, and then you're going to be ahead of what so many people aren't doing. We see that in so many other parts of life too, like diet. Like, okay, well, health and fitness, I'm gaining weight. Well, you should probably just eat protein, move more, and then you have your foundations covered, rather than trying to buy a $300 gym membership or get massages or just go keto, like go super extreme before you cover the basics. I think that's the comparison I'm drawing to what you're telling us.
Yeah, the other thing too is, like, when you're on the platform, if you come across content that you like, that is easy to read, and you are drawn to it, like, save it. And then when you go to write your content, I don't mean copy it. I mean, you can copy the format, like, obviously not the words, but like, start to pay attention to what you are drawn to. Like, what do you find easy to read? What do you keep coming back to? What do you like to see? Then, and you'll start to see a trend, or there'll be similarities, and then you can start using that in your post. If your posts don't look that way, right? If you're like, oh wow, I like the way this post looked, mine don't look that way, we'll start to bridge the gap and start using some of what. Or if you see a post that gets a lot of, even if you don't even really like it, but if you see a post that gets a lot of engagement, there's probably a reason for that. So start to study what's going on there, right? I think too many people just start writing, and then they literally never change. Or I'll see people's posts and it looks exactly the same. It's not great. The format's not great. The content's not great, but their content's very consistent. So that means they're not paying attention, right? There's no evolution in the content. So you're always learning and evolving if you're taking it seriously and you're using it to try to grow.
Yeah. And a little secret for people, that if there's some kind of coach or there's some kind of person who makes their business through content, it's not a secret how they got leads. Like, they're putting it out there for you to learn from.
Yeah.
And ideally, I think that's what the best people do, is that they showcase and they don't hide. And then, the selling part of it occurs when it's the tailored part of it, the part where you actually have to apply it to your specific content. But the foundations are there. It's just about the translation of making it work for you. So, yeah, I love that. to land the plane here, like where can people get in touch with you, find you? What has you excited nowadays? And yeah, where can people learn more about you if they want to?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed this discussion. So LinkedIn's the best place to find me, David Young. And then I don't even know how many of us there are, but there's a lot of David Young. So if you just throw MBA after my name, I'm the first one that pops up. That's a good place to find me. You can find all my stuff there. I have a new landing page. It's been out for about a month. That's davidjyoung.me. That's brand new, just launched. And then I am starting today. We're recording this on December 30th. I don't know when this is going to be released, but in 2 days on January 1st, I'm debuting a video newsletter. So I started a newsletter a long time ago that I wrote, and I did not like that process. So somebody gave me the idea to do a video newsletter. And so that starts on January 1st. And it's actually the first part of it's going to be what we just talked about. I'm going to take content that has issues, and I'm going to show you a before and after of how I would make that content better. So issues that I'm seeing with it, what makes it hard to read, what makes the message tough to understand, and then here's a better way. So you're going to see like a before and after showcase of like what I do with content. So I'm looking forward to getting that out. And yeah, so that's kind of how to find me, and I love doing it. So looking forward to putting that together.